Hello and welcome to today's post-match show. After a well-deserved draw with Rotherham United, I'm delighted to be joined by former Huddersfield Town manager Lee Clark and former Town midfielder Michael Collins. How are you both? You okay?
Good, thank you.
All good, thank you.
That's good to hear. Like we said, a well-deserved point here at Rotherham United. Lee, did you always think that equaliser was coming, because we just kept pushing and pushing and pushing, especially in that second half?
I wasn't too sure about the equaliser coming, but I felt they deserved it on the territory they had in the second half. Neither keeper was really tested during the game. A couple of chances Huddersfield had that they didn't take, especially in the second half with Corberán, the one he miscontrolled and then the one he put just wide. But I felt that the possession they had, and as I said, the territory they had, I mean, Ben here, he hasn't had a save to make in terms of any kind of shots or, you know, attempts at goal. Obviously, the strike from distance that's beat him was down, you know, a great strike off Wales, the lad, but, you know, that's down to the conditions as well. He used those conditions. And then they didn't really threaten the goal. So I think on the terms of the territory, Huddersfield deserves something from the game, without a doubt.
It could have been a really frustrating afternoon, couldn't it, Michael? And just to get that little bit of luck, obviously with Pippa's goal at the end, it changes the complete mood, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'd have to agree with Lee. It was a game where they clearly dominated, and the goal that Rotherham scored was against the run of play. And the problem with that a lot of the times is, I mean, they set their stall out early to be very much 4-4-2, disciplined, organised, and make it as hard as they possibly could for Huddersfield, who they probably knew were going to dominate possession, which they did. The problem you then get is once they nick a goal, it makes it so difficult. I mean, Lee will tell you himself, we've both played in them games where you have all the ball, but the opposition, as soon as they get that goal, they've got something to hang on to. You know, it gives them that little lift, and I think that's what you saw. But I thought, credit to Huddersfield, it's always a good sign that you can keep going and keep going and keep going, and eventually, as you say there, they got a little bit of luck, which over the course of the game, I thought they thoroughly deserved, because although they'll be a little bit disappointed with clear-cut goal attempts, they did create chances. And as Lee rightly said there, I think Josh Corberán's got to score. Certainly the cutback for me, he's got to put that in the back of the net. That changes the game with 20 or so minutes left. And he don't do that, and you're thinking this could be one of them afternoons, but, you know, credit to the boys that they kept going and, in my opinion, deservedly got an equaliser in the end.
It's good character, that, isn't it, Lee? When you go a goal behind, you've got loads of the ball, you're creating chances, it's just not going your way, to keep going, isn't it? Because it's easy then for a team, when you're 1-0 down and your backs are against the wall and you're not putting your chances away, to almost fold and give in, isn't it?
Well, yeah, they showed a fantastic attitude, the Huddersfield players. They never gave up, they kept going, even obviously getting the equaliser so late in injury time. Shows you they just kept persevering, they kept going, you know, and it's all credit to them. I think the result against Forest last week's given them a little bit of confidence. A point away from home, if you can win your home games, is good form. So hopefully these two results off the back of one another, the battling, fighting performance in a Yorkshire derby, coupled with the win against Forest last week. So it's all pointing for things looking up now after just a bit of a tough start for the new head coach. But no, listen, they deserved the result. It would have been unfair for them to lose the game. But as Michael said, when a team in the Championship, we always talk about when you're managing the Championship about getting that first goal. The first goal is always crucial, really. And it gives a team like Rotherham, who are physically fit, physical, strong team, big team, something to hang on to. But I felt Huddersfield just, you know, carried on knocking at the door without creating a lot of clear-cut chances, not causing the goalkeeper too many problems. But, you know, it certainly deserved something from the game for the efforts they put in and the amount of possession they had in territory.
Like you said, the chances kept coming, didn't they? Not clear-cut chances, but we created a lot of half chances. It's good signs, isn't it, where we're getting the ball, especially in the wide areas, I thought in particular, where we were creating a lot of chances from them, cutting the ball back. They're the stepping stones, aren't they, when you're trying to play this system?
Well, for me, Toffolo was the standout player. He put some terrific balls in. He must have crossed 8 to 10 balls of good quality, different types of crossing, fizzing them across the 6-yard box, sitting things up to the far post when he got in there. He's got good fitness levels, he's up and down, and he's got good delivery. I just felt at times that there wasn't enough players attacking the ball. If Fraser Campbell wasn't in between the posts, there didn't seem to be other players, with the exception of the one where Corberán puts it wide where Michael says he should do better, and I agree. And just feel that when the pressure was on there, you'd like 1 or 2 more players to take risks and get in the box, i.e. a midfield player. Something Michael done certainly when I was the manager there, would like to break from midfield and break lines and get goals from midfield. The opposite wide man or the opposite wing back, whoever it is, as well as Fraser Campbell. Then you've got more chance of putting those chances away, because I said he was the standout player for Huddersfield and delivered some great crosses.
How do you change that as a manager? Is it a case of the players building that relationship on the pitch and developing and learning more about where they should be in certain situations in the style?
Of course, you give them ideas and patterns of play, and you give them the freedom of doing that. You tell them that's what you want, because sometimes they feel a little bit restricted. Certainly the fullbacks, the opposite fullback, Pippa, who mightn't feel that it's his right area to be in if it's Toffolo crossing from the other end. But if you give them that freedom to, and it's certainly a midfield player from breaking lines to get in the box, which are hard to pick up, they're the ones who usually end up, if the ball doesn't come to them first time round, they'll get the second ball that drops in the box and they're in, because very rarely does the midfield runner stay with them. So it's just giving them encouragement in the final third. And obviously to win games is the most obvious thing in the world. You need to score goals, and the more pressure you put on your opponent, which Huddersfield had the territory, they had the ball, and if they just committed a few more bodies forward to help out Fraser Campbell. But sometimes that's instinct as well. You've got to have that instinct. You've got, whether you're a midfield player coming from deep, whether you're opposite wide man, whether you're a striker, if you don't have those instincts about getting in on the box for those crosses, it is difficult to teach that.
Michael, just touching on the fullbacks, obviously Pippa got the goal at the end, albeit through a deflection. Like Lee said, Harry Toffolo was excellent down that left-hand side. As outlets, how good do you think they could be over the course of this season?
Well, certainly today, I agree with Lee there. With how much of a threat they posed, they pushed high and wide. And I thought that was one of the best outlets for Huddersfield, that they could have used a little bit more. The long diag, it seemed to cause Rotherham a lot of problems because they had an overload on the fullback with one of the wide players coming inside to almost make up a front three. And they got a lot of success with it. And as I say, that's where the Josh Corberán chance come from. And the fullbacks will certainly be an assets for Huddersfield. They're strong. They look like established, what you would class as championship quality fullbacks. Final third today, as much as they had a lot of the ball and they look promising with it and they dominated possession, you want to increase that. Then that has to be turned into clear-cut chances, shots on target. I think in the first half, for all the possession, I don't think they had a shot on target, which you have to ultimately. Goals win football games, and you've seen in the last minute, as I say, the good thing is that they did keep going, and they got the look that they deserved. But you would say certainly final third, that's the area that they're going to have to focus on a little bit more, because we've both been in teams where you dominate possession but you walk off the pitch, and if you don't pick the results up, it starts to take its toll. So pleased that they got that point today. And if you look at it on reflection now, taking into account the Notts Forest game, you take 4 from 6 and you just look at those 2 games in isolation, then you'd be quite pleased with that going into the Swansea game next week. Yeah,
absolutely. Michael, just sticking with you, Carol Eiting, I wanted to mention him. I thought on what was his first start for Huddersfield Town. Obviously, he's got a good pedigree coming from Ajax, but he was excellent, wasn't he, just in terms of creating space. He played that excellent ball through to Josh Corberán as well, when his first touch just ran to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, definitely. He was another one that I picked out today. Enjoyed watching him. And she says the thing that I liked about him was he kept it simple. He didn't look to overcomplicate it. I think I've got to be honest. I think Lewis O'Brien's a little bit of a missing there at the moment. As much as Bakuna you know, he tried hard today. I think that O'Brien brings something a little bit different, you know, between him and the new lad, as you say. I think they'd have that quality in there to get on the ball, make things tick, and then have the luxury of one of them, you know, breaking from midfield while the other one covers. So, no, he certainly had a promising start. You know, as you say, he's got a great pedigree coming from where he's come from. And the good thing is, whenever he gets that opportunity to play forward, he plays forward and he looks to hurt teams. And you'd like to think that once he gets used to being around the lads, a little bit more time in and around the building and feels a little bit more comfortable, you'd like to see him grow. And without putting too much pressure on him, you know, midfielders over recent years, the likes of Aaron Moy, there's a lot to live up to. So I think there's got to be a little bit of patience with him, because I think everybody's thinking, are we getting another Aaron Moy coming through the door? And unfortunately, players like that don't grow on trees. So, you know, fingers crossed, he does bring that little bit of quality that the likes of Aaron used to bring. And as I say, you get Lewis O'Brien back in the team. So I think Carlos will be happy with what he's seen today on the whole. And as I say, for me, I think it's important now that the next few days they get it right and set themselves up going into the next 5-6 games. Because on paper, when I look at them, there's some winnable games there.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lee, obviously, we mentioned Josh Koroma already. He had 2 really good chances in the second half. He's still a young player, a striker, a wide man. He stayed lively though, didn't he? After he missed those chances, he was still going, still having shots. Do you think for him it's just a case of needing one of those to go in, getting that little bit of confidence? How key is that for a young player?
It's massive, but listen, there's no problem for me that he's missed those chances. What I'd be more concerned about is if he wasn't putting himself in the positions to miss those chances. Yeah. I'm always, when I've managed or coached players, I've never once criticised a player for missing an opportunity. I'm more concerned as a manager if my team aren't making those chances or individuals aren't putting themselves in those positions. We can easily talk about once they're in there, the different types of finish we expect from them or how we can help them on the training ground by putting shooting drills on for the different type of finishes. But, you know, he made a good run coming in off the line on both occasions, certainly the one when he just miscontrolled the ball over the top. And then obviously he's put himself in the penalty area for the one that he's put wide. You do expect him to score. As you said, he's a young player. You'd be more worried if he'd come off the pitch today and he had 0 opportunities. I think you keep confidence with those players. You know that if they keep getting there, it'll come, the goals. And what happens then is once you get the first one, the rest becomes easier. Stop thinking about it and as an attacking player, and you just naturally finish those chances off. So not a problem with players missing chances at all. Bigger problem would be if those players, attacking players, weren't getting into positions. I mean, Fraser Campbell early in the game, 2 great defensive blocks prevented him getting attempts on goal. So he's getting himself in the right position. And you want all your attacking players to have opportunities. You want your midfield players, if they're not closed down, to take shots from 25, 20, 30 yards. You want them to have attempts at goal. Not a problem if they go over the bar or wide, but you can work on that. You just want them to show the belief and the confidence to do that. And that's all you see. The manager now, the head coach, and whatever you want to call him, he'll be looking and wanting to work with those players and get them into those areas again and just work on the training ground with the different types of finishing. You know, knowing that the players are prepared to get in there. They're not worried about missing chances. So that's a good starting point, because you can easily, you know, like I said earlier, it's difficult to give them the natural instinct, but you can certainly help them with the different types of finishes on the training ground if the players are making those movements into those positions. And obviously Josh Koroma did on a couple of occasions, and you want him in the next game to do exactly the same. You don't want him to stop believing, just keep doing the same, and next time it'll finish in the net.
Is that what's key for you, obviously, as a manager? Just if for example, Josh came on the pitch, you just put an arm around him, tell him to keep believing himself? Because I'm sure coming off today, he's a bit frustrated that he hasn't found his first goal of the season.
Of course, yeah. Listen, and you may point out certain little aspects to him on a one-to-one basis, looking through the footage on how he might approach the ball or his body position or his shape, etc. All those little bits and pieces that make a difference. But yeah, without a shadow of a doubt, you'd be praising him for getting into those positions and just trying to help them how to make those opportunities end up in the back of the net. And so it's easier to do that than when players who haven't got themselves in them positions, because you then haven't explained to them what you want from them. Wide players coming in off the line, strikers spinning down the sides or whatever, and getting in between the posts for crosses. And that's what I said with Toffolo. Certainly, when you've got an asset like that, you know, you need to have a lot. You can afford to have a lot of players in between the posts, because he's delivering quality crosses into the box. You know, if you commit bodies in there, you will score goals.
Absolutely. And Michael, Lee mentioned it a couple of minutes ago. Obviously, Fraser Campbell had a really good chance 2 minutes in. It was a terrific block, you have to say, by Angus MacDonald to get in front of that, to stop Town taking the lead so early on. It was a good opening first 10 minutes, really, wasn't it, from Town? Two good opportunities coming from that left side through Harry Toffolo.
Yeah, it was a very bright start, and I think that's probably off the back of last week, getting that positive result against Nottingham Forest, giving them a lift, and you know they'll have had an opportunity to then go back into training, work on little bits and bats, and they'll have come into the game full of confidence. And I think, as I say, coming into it, you look at Rotherham, and you've probably got that one down as we've got an opportunity here to leave with 3 points. Yeah, it's a local derby, and there's a little bit more on it, but I think across the length of the season, you look out for certain fixtures that you look for your bankers, and they might have had that one down today because obviously Rotherham just come up. They're the ones that you want to take the points off, and I thought, yeah, they come out of the traps flying, but I thought they did that for the first, right up until the goal. I thought the goal was against the run of play, and it just took a little bit of wind out of the sails, and I think that's inevitable sometimes when you're building and you're building and you're building and you're thinking a goal's coming here, and then they whip up the other end. And let's be honest, it's a great strike from the lad as well. It's not like they've carved him open and, you know, got him behind and cut back and it's in the back of the net. It's a 25-yard on another day as well. On a dry pitch, it probably doesn't pick up as much pace, and Ben Hamer gets across and maybe gets a hand to it. So I thought it was very unlucky to actually go one down to begin with. Just going back to Josh Corberán, I played with Josh at Leyton Orient when he was a young lad coming through, and he was very similar then with regards to he's as honest as the day is long. For the way that Carlos wants to play, which is very similar to Leeds, where, you know, out of possession, certainly the man for man, and there's a lot of emphasis on your individual role. He'll be good for that because he'll put the work in. You know, he'll never let you down. The one thing that he kind of needed to add to his game at Leyton Orient was just that consistency, certainly in his final product, and you're still seeing that a little bit now. You just kind of hope that over the course of the year, with a little bit more game time, you know, he starts to find himself a little bit more, and that consistency comes, because it's difficult sometimes when he's from down south, he's come up north, he's not really got a full run at it yet. He's getting a little bit, looks like he's a little bit more in favour this season, so he might just need a little bit of time, as may one or two others. But yeah, I think on the whole today, across the, you know, the length of the game, I was quite pleased with what I saw from Huddersfield. I think there's a lot to build on, but as I said as well, I think it can quite quickly go the other way if you don't start turning that possession and that dominance into clear-cut opportunities and goals. So I'm sure that's the area that they'll discuss this week, and they'll try and identify how they can kind of broach that, because for me, they look 2 or 3 players of real quality, which is, I know that's easier said than done, from being one of them teams that all of a sudden is up around the top 6, 10 and in amongst it.
Yeah, absolutely. And Michael, like you mentioned, it was a great strike from Ben Wiles to put Rotherham ahead. From a defensive perspective, obviously it was a second phase from a corner. How do you stop that from happening? What do you have to do differently?
It's very tough, to be honest. It's obviously, you always get told, first rule is if a lad's 25, 30 yards from goal, you've got to go and put pressure on the ball. So that was the first thing you look at, was the pressure. Was the pressure right? You know, did we get enough of a body in front of it? I actually remember Lee telling us a story at Huddersfield about how Stephen Taylor used to come out and block, and you know, used to come out like a wall. So, and not a lot of players do. Sometimes they come out and it's, you know, shots coming and you go with the half turn your body and it ends up, you know, in the back of the net. So that'd be the first thing you look at. But I think sometimes you've almost got to tip your cap to the strike. On another day, let's be honest, he strikes that and it goes 15, 20 yards over the bar, catches it absolutely sweet as a nut on a wet surface, and it lands in the bottom corner. And like you can spend all day. Both sides from that point of view will look at their angle. So defensively, Huddersfield, look, could we have done any better? But from the attacking point of view, you're just saying, well, what a strike that is. So it's a difficult one, really. But on the whole today, I thought Huddersfield defended quite well. Like the look of Sarr, I thought he defended quite well. And obviously you've got Stearman in there, who's a little bit of an older head, who's been around the Championship and knows what's expected. So I think there was positives to take from the game, certainly. Both defensively and going forward. It'd just be, for me, that key area, and it's the hardest part of football, and it's why strikers get paid the most money. Putting it in the back of the net, that's the one area that they've really got to look at.
Lee, would you agree with that assessment for the goal from a defensive perspective? Do you think Fraser Campbell should have come out a little bit quicker, just held his body straighter like the wall, like Michael said?
I'm not too sure. I think we could be nitpicking a little bit. I think Michael's already hit the nail on the head and said the lads hit a terrific strike. And it's a terrific strike in many ways, but the main reason it's a terrific strike, he's kept it low. The conditions, a real greasy surface, so the ball's going to generate speed when it hits there. It was in the corner of the goal. And I think Fraser Campbell's trying to get out the ball as quickly as possible on the second phase. So I think from a managerial and coaching point of view, you'd probably be, if you went down the line of trying to say someone was really at fault, you'd be a little bit nitpicking. Sometimes you have to hold your hand up and say, we've done everything we've asked. My team have got out on the second phase. My striker's the first line of the press. He's went out to get to the ball first. And he's trying to get a block. I think it's possibly went through his legs. As you said, when I used to give the example of Stephen Taylor at Newcastle, he, a hairy centre-half who wasn't worried about getting smacked in the face or the chest. I think, in fact, he loved it. It was part of his makeup, so it was part of his personality. But I just feel that I think Huddersfield, from a defensive point of view, couldn't have done a lot more. And you've got to just sometimes give credit to your opponent and how he struck the ball.
And like we alluded to earlier, the game then became harder. Rotherham were really, really compact. When you're playing against a side like that, Lee, how difficult is it to break them down, and what do you have to do? Is it just a case of keeping the ball moving quickly, switching it from side to side, cross-field passes?
Yeah, you've got to switch the play. Like Michael said, the diagonal was on because they were quite narrow in that defending. When you had the ball down one side of the field, the diagonal, especially to Toffolo, was on every time. So, and you've also got to move it 1 and 2 touch. Playing little pockets between the lines if there's any spaces, because as their midfield was dropping deep to be compact with their defenders, and just be patient. But obviously, like we've touched upon, both me and Michael, is once you get in those wide areas, getting numbers in the box. Don't just leave it up to 1 or 2. Get 3 or 4 in the box, because someone will switch off. The midfield player will switch off from your midfield player running off the back of them in an attacking position, or the opposite wide man will come in and the full back on who's defending against him will not have good body shape and be ball watching, and you can get across the face of them to put the cross in. So I think just that, and I think that'll come with the confidence of the team. As I've said, 4 points out of the last 6. The players will become more and more confident. They'll start believing. They'll take more risks. And hopefully, this can be a start of a decent run and return of points for the team.
I just wanted to touch upon Naby Sarr, Michael. You mentioned him earlier. Obviously, today was his debut for Huddersfield Town. He looked really comfortable on the ball, big physical presence. He fit in really nicely, considering he's only had just over a week's training with Carlos Corberán.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the other thing that you've got to say, which actually surprised me, was I don't think he'll come up against a strike force like that across the rest of the season. And what I mean by that is usually when you look at strikers, first and foremost, they went with 2 target men up top in George Hurst and Ladapo, both lads that want it in around them so they can play off it. Ladapo does run the channels a little bit more. But then the replacements to come on as well in Vassell and Smith were 2 units. So normally in the Championship, you might have a target man, and then you'll have somebody who plays off or runs in behind. So to actually play up against two big physical lads and then be replaced by two more big physical lads. It was a good test, and I thought he'd come through it with flying colours. And I think that's another thing where there's got to be an element of patience at the moment, because the way that Carlos works, from what I hear and from the little bits that come out and what happened at Leeds, is they'll be working in a completely different way to they've ever worked before. It's a completely different style. It's very intense. There's a lot that you have to take on board in a short space of time. So if there's going to be bodies coming in and out, it's going to take a little bit of time to bed in and get those messages across and get everybody understanding exactly what it looks like. The good thing is, in the early stages of what I've seen, you can see an identity. You can see that it's, there's roots of it going in now. The seeds have been planted, and you'd like to think that once they get a settled squad together and they get a settled 11, 12, 13, 14 that are playing consistently, you'll really see that bear fruit. So it's still early days. There's Carlos has come across from Leeds, where he's obviously been in more of an assistant role to then take your range yourself. He's dealing with a lot of stuff he won't have dealt with at Leeds. At Leeds, it'll have all been about the coaching. So he's adapting as well. And I just think it needs a little bit of time. But going back to Sarr, yeah, I think he'll certainly leave there today really pleased with his performance. And for Huddersfield on the whole, I think he looks like he could be a real key addition.
What particularly impressed you, Lee, about Naby Sarr's performance?
I think the whole package. I think you mentioned the physical aspect. He has that for the Championship. The composure on the ball. Both short, his range of passing. But he can, as Michael quite rightly said, he showed he can compete against a real physical front players. I know Michael Smith very well. I had him when I managed Bury. He's very combative. He wants to back into centre halves. He wants to use his physical presence. Sarr didn't get intimidated by that. The same way he didn't with young George Hurst and Ladapo and Vassell. He went toe to toe with them. So he showed that he can compete on both levels. He showed he can compete on the physical nature of the Championship. But he also showed that the way the head coach wants to play now with Huddersfield, he can produce and he can be one of the starting players to help that pattern of play. So, and he can only get better to start. As you say, he's probably not even match fit yet. He's probably not even 100%. He came over, I think he had to self-isolate, did he? Quarantine for a while because of where he travelled from. So I think, he's probably just getting to know his teammates. They're getting to know him. So I would think the staff would be really pleased and know that there's even more to come when he gets to 100% level. And certainly with that type of quality of signing, you've got to have belief that the head coach going forward, if he can start bringing players in of that quality.
And Lee, like you said earlier, 4 points obviously from the last 2 games, 4 points from the first 4 after what is a difficult start. It's a good return, isn't it, going into the first international break?
Well, that's what it's important. International breaks are tough if you've come off the back of a bad result and a loss, and some of your players are disappearing on international duty, so you kind of get the chance to work with them. So it takes a lot longer to get that out of the system. I think, listen, it was always going to be a tough start for Carlos. He's new to it. He was, like Michael said, as a new head coach, you want to put your ideas across. They won't get there straight away. There'll be a crossover of what the players have had in the past and what you're trying to get. So it'll not be plain sailing at the start, but you can see, I certainly could see last week, and I watched the Forest game, and today, lots of positive signs that bits and pieces are dropping into place. The whole package, it's not there yet, but it's a work in progress. And I think what's been shown in the last 2 games is the manager's getting them fitter. The way Leeds United were ridiculously fit last season, I think he's working in the same way. He wants this Huddersfield team to be the same, which I believe is the right way. The fitter you are, the more productive you can be, whichever way you're going to play the game. And they're starting to gain confidence. And what he's instilled as well in the last 2 games is that fighting spirit. And they showed that in abundance today. They never gave up, and they got a point away from home.
Lee, Michael, I think between you summed that up perfectly. A good point here at Rotherham United, and a platform really to continue to build on. Thank you both for joining us, and hopefully after the international break, we'll continue to get some more points. Thank you.